Joining us here at the top of the show is former NBA referee Tim Donaghy. Tim, thanks so much for coming on the show tonight. We appreciate your time. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
It's great to chat with you here. We thought no one would be better to kind of weigh in on this subject matter. And, I'm just curious, Tim, right off the bat, what were your initial thoughts? So when you heard the news this week that gambling would be legalized across the United States?
I thought it was a positive thing, and it's a positive thing for a bunch of reasons. I think, now people can be able to place bets legally and not worry about having to be in Vegas, because technically the only real place you can place a legal bet is Vegas. So it opens up a lot of doors for a lot of people to feel more comfortable about gambling.
We know there's going to be a lot of money generated across the board, but the big thing that everyone's talking about is how does this affect players? And from their perspective, what are your thoughts on what this will do for them, players who are currently still playing whatever sport it may be right now?
I think it's going to generate a lot more revenue. So I think it's going to send the salary cap through the roof. I think it's going to send the franchise values through the roof. So I think it's a positive thing for the players, because they're going to be able to make more money. And when you talk about, having the fans in the arenas able to place bets on live wagering, I think it's just another stepping stone to creating a large amount of revenue for the leagues.
Different commissioners across sports. You had Adam Silver come out, and he's been in support of it. He's really been the most vocal commissioner to date who has done so. Do you think other commissioners will kind of come around, as obviously there's going to be different type of stipulations to be put in place, you would think, down the line to make sure that everything is in check? How do you see this going, not just with basketball, but with other professional sports, NFL, Major League Baseball, etc.?
I do. I think the NBA seems to always be one step ahead of the other professional sports franchises, and I think once they see the amount of revenue and the different avenues that they can generate, that I think everyone's going to jump on board. I think the sport that everybody likes to bet the most is football, so with the NBA probably setting the blueprint up on how they can have the fans interact and get a piece of the pie, I think everybody else is going to fall in line. There's one problem that's going to exist, and that's with lower-level college sports, to where some of these kids are never going to have that opportunity to be a professional athlete. I think there could be a possibility that somebody could bribe them when the line's maybe 10, 11, 12, or 13, and just have them cover the line without, covering the spread, without winning the game, and still benefit by getting some type of handout. So I think they have to be careful on that perspective.
What should they do, Tim? In that example you just gave right there, obviously that's something that could potentially be exposed. What do you think they should do as they look down the line to make sure that everything is in check as far as regards to that, as the ones who don't go pro? What would you suggest in that case? What should be done?
I think you definitely have to, no doubt, educate these kids, warn these kids of what could take place in regard to getting involved in something like that, and making sure nobody has anything on you in regard to organized crime, to where they can threaten you by exposing you for something. So I think they just have to really educate these kids on the pitfalls of what could happen if they get involved in something like that.
You mentioned the NFL. The Raiders are going to move from Oakland to Las Vegas in just a couple of seasons. This is something that obviously professional sports being in Vegas is not something that has been popular over the years. Things have changed now. Times have changed with the Vegas Golden Knights and the NHL. Their first season, everything is going great with them. Like I said, the Raiders are going to move there in just a couple of seasons. With this becoming legalized now, and obviously more teams, professional teams heading to Vegas, more people as well to come and watch those games. Do you think there's going to be any type of concern as far as people kind of emerging more so on Vegas and that area than they have really ever before, with sports being at the precipice of it?
I think it's going to hurt Vegas a little bit. I think that, you're no longer going to need to go to Vegas to place a bet legally. You're going to be able to, go into a local 7-Eleven probably within the next 5 years or so, or at the airport at a kiosk, for example. So I think it's going to hurt, Vegas, and I don't think you're going to need to go there as much. And I'm sure that, the Raiders may be rethinking that move that they just made, because it's no longer going to be the place to go. You're going to be able to go anywhere to place a bet.
We're talking with Tim Donaghy here on Behind the Mic. Tim, how much of the NBA do you watch these days?
No, I watch a lot of it. I help manage a website called refpicks.com, which is a site that we have that we give betting advice on. We have a lot of sports handicappers that work with us. So I follow the NBA a lot, and I follow the relationships, with the referees and the players, and the referees and the owners, and the referees and the coaches, and see how that may affect the point spread. And if I see something there, then we put out a play in regard to that.
What do you make about it's been talked about now, well documented, that there's so many superstars today in the NBA, whether it be LeBron, James Harden with the Rockets, who continuously get to the free throw line a lot more than we saw in decades past, whether it be in the early 2000s or back in the 90s. What do you make of the job the NBA officials have done, not only this year, but during the last couple of NBA seasons when we've had such a high percentage of fouls called and guys being sent to the line? What are your thoughts on that?
It's something where the league comes in and dictates what they want the officials to call through tape sessions. So the league really controls the officials, and when they tell the officials to do something, they crack down on it. And the last couple of years, there's been a large emphasis on physicality and getting rid of hand checking, getting rid of the physicality in the lane, which opens the game up and allows for more points being scored, and that's what they want. They want the exciting up and down flow with a lot of scoring. So they're going to call the fouls when things get physical to try to take that out of the game.
You mentioned refpicks.com just a moment ago. Tell us more about that site and some of the work that you and your team is doing.
Basically, like I said, it's a situation where we have a lot of sports handicappers that work for us and specialize in different things. I, of course, specialize in the NBA, and we have different guys for Major League Baseball or the college sports. So it's a situation where we analyze the lines, and if people are betting as a form of entertainment and enjoyment and not gambling away their mortgage money, we work with them and give them different tips on what we do and how you can be successful at gambling.
You mentioned a couple of years ago that you believe that 100% of the NBA referees are gambling on basketball. Do you still stand by that a couple years later, or do you think things have changed?
I think when I was there, we were all gambling, and since then, they have changed the rules, because when I was there, you weren't allowed to gamble, and if you did get caught gambling, you lost your job, whether it was at a casino or betting on college sports or whatever. Now they've taken that away, and they allow the referees to gamble. So there's no doubt in my mind they're continuing to gamble, whether it's on golf or at the casinos or filling out an NCAA pool. So I'm sure they're continuing to gamble.